So let's start thinking about how to add keyboard input to this game so that I can move the soccer shoe around and actually try to keep the ball up. If you want to have keyboard input for a game, the best object to add the listener for the keyboard events to is the scene. Anything else might not have focus and might miss the key events, but the scene is kind of always in focus and therefore always receives the key events. So what I need to do in the start method is to, after I declare the scene, add a line that says game scene dot set on key pressed. Now there's three different keyboard events: key pressed, key released, and key typed. The key typed event is triggered when a key is both pressed and released. For game settings, key typed is not always the most useful. I mean, there's some games, like if you're creating a game to help people learn how to type, then key typed might be useful. But for most games, it's better to use a combination of the pressed and released events than it is to actually use the key typed. So we're going to add both of these: key pressed and key released. And these work kind of like the button set on action methods, where we need to specify, okay, there's going to be a key event and what method is going to handle it. So I'm just going to create two separate methods, one for when a key is pressed. And in that method, I'm going to pass as an argument the key event that occurs, because the key event contains information about which key in particular was pressed. So I'm going to pass that as an argument for my key pressed event. And at the same time, I'm going to add a set on key released listener. And I'll have a key event that goes to a key released method. And again, I'm going to pass it the key event so that I can know which key in particular was released. I'm going to try to set it up so that I can monitor like every key on the keyboard, even though in this particular game, I only need a few keys on the keyboard. I think we said we're going to use space to start the game. I'm going to set it up so that P will pause the game, and then the left and the right arrows to move the boot around, and that's it. But it doesn't cost me anything extra to monitor every key on the keyboard, so we can just use the exact same keyboard stuff pretty much in any game, monitoring for all of the keys. Okay, now I'm showing errors on those two lines right now, and the errors are, of course, that I don't have those public void methods in my program yet. So let's set these up. Public void key pressed. It takes a key event argument, which we'll just call key, whatever key was pressed, and I'll avoid key released, which takes a key event as an argument. We'll call it key again. All right, so key pressed method will respond when a key on the keyboard has been pressed, and key released event will respond when a key on the keyboard has been released. Okay, so how can we set these up? In some instances, we want the program to have a response when the first time I push the button down. Sorry, I'm just getting an error here because I have an imported key event. Do that first. So import key event, and now everything's happy. Okay. Some instances, I want the game to respond the moment I press a key. For example, I'm going to use the P key for pause as a P for pause. So I can look at the key that got pressed down by saying if the key code get code is equal to, and how will I know what letter got pressed? I can go key code dot, and whatever letter or key on the keyboard I'm looking for, you notice that there's all kinds of different keys that I could have under the key code, like the A key. I just put the letter for most of the letter keys, but there's also things like ampersand or asterisk or alt key or anything like that. Pretty much every key on the keyboard has a key code that you can find and look up, and even lots of keys that you must have to have some kind of different keyboard in order to have that key on your keyboard. So anyway, I'm looking for P. If the person presses P, then I want to call the pause game, or I think I just called it pause, the pause method. Right, so by pressing P, the person can get the animation going, or if it's stopped, or stop the animation if it has been going. Of course, key code is not imported. I need to import that as well. Right now, right away, if I run this, I should be able to press the P key on my keyboard and get the animation running. So let's just test that out. There's the screen, press P, animation starts, press it again, animation stops. Press it again, animation starts up again. Right, so I don't even need this go button in particular anymore. I can just get rid of that because now I have a key on the keyboard that I can do that instead. Another key that I'd like to respond to as soon as it's pressed is the escape key. I want to make a way to quit the game, actually. So if key.getCode is equal to key code escape, then what's going to happen? What's going on here? Eclipse is being helpful and putting brackets in where I don't need them. All right, so what happens if the person presses the escape key? Like I said, I just want the program to quit. And to quit a JavaFX program, you go platform.exit. That's the command to quit the game. All right, so I'm not going to test that out. I'm going to assume that that works. Now let's think about getting the soccer shoe to move. Okay, so I said I wanted to use the left and the right arrows. This is going to be a little bit awkward at first. If I put the left arrow here, if key.getCode is equal to keycode.left, then what do I want to happen if I press the left arrow key? I would like the soccer shoe, so I believe my variable name is foot, to get some velocity to the left and move. So I will go set velocity in the X direction. Now to the left it's going to have to be negative, so I'm going to say something like about negative 200 pixels per second. And I'm going to say foot dot update. And how much time would I like it to update for? I don't have the elapsed time here in this method. So you can see this is probably not the place where I want to eventually leave this, but I'm just trying some stuff out for now. So let's just pretend like, okay, we're going to do it for 1/10 of a second, as if 1/10 of a second had passed. So really what that's going to achieve is going to move 200 pixels per second times 1/10 of a second. That'll be 20 pixels to the left when I press the left arrow. Okay, so let's just give that a try. At the same time, I will check my error. Oh, the button that I removed, I still had added to the screen. That's not going to work. Okay, let's just give that a try. And when I press the left button, the shoe moves. Right? Now, what makes this not the best solution is you can see that the movement was a little bit kind of jerky. It wasn't a nice smooth movement like the ball. And also I have to like keep repeatedly pressing the left button like to get it to move. If I press and hold, that doesn't make more than one key press event. Well, actually it does after a little bit. I'm about to lose the shoe off the side of the screen there, but holding the button down, eventually the keyboard starts firing multiple, as if I've been repeatedly pressing the key. And that's just something in the operating system. But again, not very smooth, really jerky. I don't really like the look of that. That's not how I want this to work. Now, similarly for moving to the right, same idea, except if the key code is to the right, then I move positive 200 pixels the other way. Okay. To make that run smoother and not have to be continually tapping keys, I want to take this out of the key pressed method and move it down to the update game method, or at least something that the update game is going to call. So I'm going to add another call in here, and that's going to be handle keyboard input. And again, I'm going to pass how much time has elapsed down through to that method. Let's make that method right here, public handle keyboard. Taking a double. Elapsed time. Okay, so what I would like to do would be to take these checks to see if the left key and the right key have been pressed and move them down out of the key pressed event and down into something that runs a little bit smoother off the animation timer. But now, of course, I don't have key codes anymore. So how am I going to know if the left button is pressed down? So one solution to that would be to make some sort of flag, like, for example, left arrow. And I could just make that a Boolean in my program. And in the key pressed method, I would do something like if if key.getCode equals keycode.left. And what I would do is set left arrow equal true. And now I also have to keep track when it gets released. So when it gets released, if it was the left arrow that got released, then I would set my flag variable to false. Here's the thing about doing it this way. This way works, but here's the thing about it. I would have to have a different flag variable for every single key that I want to be able to respond to. And depending on the size of my program, that could start turning into quite a few keys. There's another way I can do this where I can create one thing that stores every single possible key that could be pressed down. And when the person presses it, I store that key away into this, I'm going to call it a hash set. And when the person lets go of the key, I take it out of the hash set so it's not there anymore. Okay, so here's how that works. I need to declare the hash set that's going to store all the key codes that show up. And I'll do that at the top of the program because I want it to be a class variable. So private final hash set is the object type. And with this object type, it's a little bit special because you have to put a set of angle brackets and say what kind of thing you're going to be sticking into the hash set. I'm going to be sticking key codes into the hash set. I'm just going to call it keyboard because I'm using it to represent virtually what buttons are held down on my keyboard. And I'm going to set that equal to a new hash set, and again, angle brackets saying that I'm going to be storing key codes in that hash set. And then the set of round brackets because that's the constructor method. Notice do need to import hash set, and hash set comes from the package java.util. Not JavaFX on this one. Don't be looking for JavaFX. It's java.util. All right, so make that hash set object. And a hash set is just like an empty list of stuff. You can have hash sets of basically anything you want to fill, any type of object you want to fill in the angle brackets with. You can make a hash set of those types of objects. And the benefit of it is it will only store one copy of anything that you put into it. So, I mean, I don't know how this would happen, but if somebody managed to press down a particular key on the keyboard twice, it's not like it would show up in my hash set twice. For example, if we were looking at the control key, because there's one on the left side and one on the right side, if they press down the left side, it would go into the hash set. And then when they press down the right side, it's already in the hash set, so it wouldn't get added again. It's a really memory effective way of storing a list of objects without repeating any objects in the list. Okay, so how do I use it? Well, in the key pressed event, I want to store that the left arrow key was pressed. In fact, I don't even care that in particular that it was the left arrow key. I just want to store every key that got pressed. So, sorry, go back down to my key pressed event. I'm not going to test to see which key it was because I don't care. Now, the first two up here, I'm going to still care. Like, oh, what did you press the P key? That pauses the game. Oh, did you press the escape key? That exits. But after that, whatever key you pressed, take my hash set that I called keyboard, and I'm going to add. I have to add a key code because I said what kind of thing this hash set stores. And I'm just going to add whatever key was given to me to get the code. So store the key code for whatever key got pressed. Same thing when it gets released. All right, I don't need to make an if statement anymore because I don't care what key got released, just that a key got released. I'm going to go keyboard dot remove and take this key out of the hash set. And the person lets go of it. So now the hash set is storing like a whole set of flags for me for any key on the keyboard that I care to look for, right? Nice thing is we can set this up in any game program that we write pretty much exactly the same way. And it doesn't even matter because it'll look for every key on the keyboard. Now I can go to my handle keyboard input, and I've still got a few errors there, right? Oh, that should be public void, so let's get rid of that error. To handle the keyboard input, I wanted to know about the left arrow being pressed. So I'm going to use the hash set to find out, is the left arrow pressed down right now? So I'm going to go keyboard, that's the name of my hash set object, dot, and I'm going to use contains as the method that I check. So if keyboard contains key code left, then the person is holding down the left arrow key and the foot should move to the left. And I'm going to move it to the left, not based off a tenth of a second, but based off how much time has elapsed. And then if they're holding down the right key, which I'm going to do with the same check to the hash set, or a similar check to the hash set. So keyboard dot contains code dot write. Then I'll set the velocity 200 in the positive direction, and I'll update based on the elapsed time. One of the neat side effects to this is imagine a scenario where a person is holding down both the left and the right key at the same time. What should happen? To me, they're trying to move left and right kind of equally, and the foot shouldn't move at all. Will that occur? It actually does, because check out that if the left key is down, which it is, I move a certain amount to the left. And if the right key is down, I move the same amount back to the right. net result will be the shoe doesn't move. So if the person's actually holding down both arrows, the shoe won't move. If they hold down the left key, it will just move to the left. If they hold down the right key, it will just move to the right. Okay, let's test that out and see if that's working now. Oh, I need to get the game going, so I need to unpause it so that my timer is running. And there we go. Now I can actually do some keep ups with the ball using the left and right arrow keys. But I can only move the foot if the timer is going. So if I press P to pause it, foot doesn't move if I have the left and right arrow keys down anymore. Now, I want to change a little bit up about the P key, because watch what happens if I hold down P. I get this weird sort of stuttery movement, and it's slower than normal. That's because I'm getting repeated events with the P key being pressed. So it pauses the game and unpauses the game. It pauses the game and unpauses the game really quickly. So how can I prevent that? Well, I actually have my keyboard keeping track of what keys are being held down right now. So I could check before I go to see if the key code is P and pause the game. I could check to make sure that P isn't already in the keyboard hash set, and that will prevent that sort of stuttery action from the pause key. So I would say something like, if keyboard dot contains key code dot P, not if it contains that, but if not keyboard contains key code P. So then if the hash set doesn't have P for this event, key pressed event, that means this is the time when P was getting pressed down. And so the person is actually trying to actively pause the game. So I should respond to that. But if P was pressed and held and the keyboard just starts repeating it, then I shouldn't respond anymore. And so if it's in the hash set, don't bother responding to pause or unpause the game. And I'm going to do the same with the escape key, although I don't think it matters as much here, because you hit escape once and the whole program's going to quit anyway. So it's not really quite the same, but I'm going to do it anyway just as a sort of good practice. I have a key that I want to respond to the person basically typing that key, then what I should do is make sure that it's not in the keyboard hash set, and then check to see if that was the key that they actually pressed, and then do whatever I want to do based on what key they pressed, whether that's exit the game or pause the game. And the next thing we're going to do in the next video is add in the states. So we have the title screen and we have the playing the game state. And so I'm going to have another check here. Did they press space to start playing the game? So what happens when they do that? All right, let's just run that one more time. I'm going to hold down the P key. And you notice that it doesn't get that strange stutteriness to it anymore. It just, as long as I'm holding P, doesn't do anything. If I let go and press it again, then I can pause. And that's kind of the intended way the game should play.